everybody, welcome back. Thanks for being here. Today I'm finally bringing you guys a really cool piece of gear, and I waited to do this video because I wanted to finish the restoration on this 1964 Firebird 1. If you haven't seen the full story on this guitar, I just uploaded a video the other day, but I wanted to do a Fender and Gibson demo with this amp. So we'll have this guitar and my 59 Strat as well, but this is a super high quality hand-wired Marshall amplifier. It's called a 1974X, and it's really something different than anything I've used before. It's the first real Marshall amp that I've ever owned, and you may know that I mostly use vintage Fenders, usually 40 to 50 watt Fender amps. That's actually a 100 watt dual showman, so this is really a different sound than anything I've used before, and it records really well. So today we will do the Fender and Gibson demo. I want to start out with a quick clean tone comparison, and then I'll talk to you guys about the feature set of this amp, some of the history behind it, and then of course we will crank it up to the sweet spot because it is a tube amp. So once you get the volume up a little bit, it really has that nice classic Marshall sound. So let's start out with the clean tone and we'll go from there. Alright, so hopefully I recorded this amp well enough so you can hear, but it's definitely a different sound than the Fender amps that I've used, and I mean, it's more similar to like my Tweed Bassman in a way, but it seems to be a little bit of a fuller, richer sound, and it sounds beautiful for chords and rhythm playing. It does have a little bit of breakup to it as well in a very natural way, and it sounds nice. It sounds great for recording. I really like it for that reason. I will say this is an 18 watt amplifier, so for me it's kind of like a bedroom amp. For some people it could be more than what you could use in your bedroom, but I will use this for rehearsals, band practice. I'll use it for like a songwriting session, or I might use it as like a secondary amp, so running a super reverb in conjunction with this amp, and it really gives you a wider stereo sound with a really contrasting tone on the left and right. So it's really good for that purpose. But I will say my drummer is a really loud player, and this will hang in the mix, but I mean, you almost have to dime it and put a pedal in front of it, and it's not going to cut through the mix. So you're gonna, in a band setting, you'll be able to hang in there, but you're not going to cut through with this amp. It has a 20 watt greenback Celestion, which again is really a perfect fit for, an 18 watt tube amplifier, but I do wonder if maybe putting in something that's a little bit higher wattage, like 40 or 50 watts, maybe would tighten up the low end a bit and give me a little bit of extra clean headroom. I wish it was maybe like 25 watts or 30 watts even for what I use it for, but really the smaller amps record better, and my 50 watt amps or 100 watts, they have to be turned up so loud, and once you get into that level of volume, recording it becomes a bit more difficult. So this amplifier is actually a reissue that Marshall came out with, I believe, within the last 10-15 years or so, but Marshall came out with this amp in the mid-60s, I believe in 65, and it was only in production until like around 68. And you might be looking at it thinking it's the Blues Breaker amp, which is a famous amp that was used by Clapton, and a super iconic tone that people have tried to replicate forever. But this is kind of a mini Blues Breaker. I think the Blues Breaker amp was 30 watts and this is 18. So this is only a single 12. So it's definitely not as aggressive, not as loud as a tone as the original Blues Breaker, but it's something all on its own. So it does have two channels. The first channel here is simply tone and volume, which I really love. It's super simple. You plug in, crank it up to where you feel it sounds good, and that's all you have to do. I kind of like the simplicity of that. The second channel does have tremolo, which I'm not a big tremolo guy. It's never been an effect I really found a use for. But I have found if you plug into that channel and just run it without the tremolo, it sounds a little different, and I'm a fan more of just the basic channel with the volume and tone. So that's how I run the amp. For the clean tone, initially I used the amp at around 3, maybe 4 on the volume, and the tone kind of cranking it up to about 6 or 7. I like to have it there, whether I'm using this amp for more of a clean sound or even at the saturated sweet spot, I leave the tone alone about at 6 or 7. So why don't we go ahead and crank this thing up a little bit. I think we'll turn the volume up to maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 on this thing, because any more than that, it starts to get a little bit mushy and lose shape a little bit. So we'll turn it up to what I think is the sweet spot, play the 59, play the 64, and see what happens, and we can talk about it afterwards. So as you can hear, this thing really has an aggressive sound, and it's got a lot of sustain. You can hear the kind of Marshall grit and overdrive that's very natural from just turning the amp up, and that's what I love about tube amps. When you're in the room playing, interacting with the amp, it's such a cool feel. And that's really the way I've grown up playing. So this amp is great for somewhat low volume playing. I mean, in comparison to some of my Fender amps, it's a little bit more manageable in terms of volume, which I do like that now. I think with humbuckers like this Firebird, this thing really shines. It has that big, rich, full sound. And I think with the Stratocaster, it does do something different than a Fender amp, and that's why I was mentioning running this together with a Fender amp really gives you a little bit of a fuller sound. So I'm really liking that, and I think this could definitely be something that I could use in the future going forward, especially you know, at a live show again someday, running this with my super reverb. I think it'd give me a better live sound for what I'm going for, which a lot of times, you know, the music that I'm writing has more of a rock sound to it rather than a bluesy thing. So adding this in gives me a little bit more grit and a little bit more of a wider sound for playing chords and stuff like that. I would love to hear what you guys think of the sound of this amplifier. You know, whether the Fender or the Gibson was better, or just what you thought. Overall, it is kind of an expensive amp. I think they're new, about $3,000. It is hand wired, so that's kind of the price you pay, but I will say the quality on this thing is top notch. It truly is. So you're getting a really high quality product. As far as buying them on the used market, I saw them as cheap as like $1,600 to $2,000. So that's certainly a little bit more reasonable. I couldn't find any of the original amps for sale online. I think they must be super rare, and they were only made for a couple years, so I think they are in really limited numbers. But yeah, maybe I'll be able to get my hands on a different Marshall, maybe a vintage one, whether it's a head or probably not a combo. It'll probably have to be a head if it's something vintage. But I would love to hear from you guys what you thought of the tone of this amplifier, whether you enjoyed the Fender or the Gibson more. If you think this is something I should incorporate into my rig, I'd love to hear what your thoughts were. And then also, you know, if you have any recommendations on if I happen to come across, you know, a vintage Marshall, what do you think it would be? I just don't know. I'm open to any advice there. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy the videos, it always helps if you give a thumbs up, if you leave me a comment. Those two things right there will really help the videos grow and get out there. And my channel, if you want to subscribe, of course, that helps immensely. And that's really the best thing you can do. So thank you guys very much for being here. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.